much for channeling into my video. So today I'm finally doing my French apartment tour. I think I have possibly chosen the worst time to film this video because as you can see to my right or to your left, I have 3 really big windows, which I am actually super happy about. But when it came down to filming and I hadn't really filmed that many videos inside this apartment, I'm realizing like harsh light like this on my face, that's just too much. And then on the other side where there's no light, there's no light. So there's either too much light or no light. And so I am going to settle here right next to the light where you can actually see my face, but it is not the brightest. So moving on. So the apartment that I ended up finding in France is actually in a town called Marseille. Marseille, it's like the second largest city in France, and it's right next to the sea. So where I live, it's called the Vieux-Port, which means the old port area. I don't know why they call it old port. They probably had a transition period. But right now, if you go outside of my house, just like 2 minutes walk from here, you can literally see all types of yachts docked right in front of our house where there is the port. And then surrounding that port like curb, there are restaurants, there's like bars and like the French brasseries where you can sit and look towards the yacht that are docked in front. So it's super beautiful. It's always filled with people and it's so lively. Sometimes it can be a little noisy at night, but at the same time I still love this like sort of mood with the sea, with so many like, I don't know, people excited all the time, and I'm actually really loving that. So that is where I am actually living right now and where this apartment is. In terms of the type of the apartment, in France, in New York, for example, they would call it like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, studio apartment, blah, blah, blah. Which means like 1 bedroom, you have a bedroom, and then you will have the living room, and then you'll have probably like kitchen and toilet or the bathroom. Depends, it could be connected to some parts of your house or it can be separated, but mostly it counts the number of bedrooms. So when you say 1 bedroom, you're most likely to have a separate bedroom and then you have another living room and kitchen elsewhere. Whereas in France, they would say like type 1, type 2, type 3, blah, blah, blah. So this only goes as far as apartments, as far as I know. And tip 1, which is type 1, it's just like the French way of pronunciation. So the type 1 would be equivalent to what is a studio in New York. And so you'll definitely find just one large space that has different corners where you can put a bed, and then you can eat on a table, and then you'll have kitchen connected, and then you have a bathroom. And so studio is T1, and then if you start to have a bedroom separate from the living space, then that counts into type 2, so which is T2. And the apartment that I'm living in right now is a type 2 apartment, which means where I'm filming right now, this is the living room space, and it's pretty big. It's like a big living room space that is not connected directly to the kitchen. The kitchen is connected from here, but it still has a little separation. So whenever we cook in the kitchen, the smell of the food or like our workspace is definitely separated from the living room. And then just about the same size as this living room is the bedroom that I have behind. And because it's like a really old type of building, I'm sure there are other inconveniences that comes with the building, but one of the things that you probably won't find in a modern apartment these days, it's this huge high ceiling with like decorations that can be found from like 1700s or 1800s. Our bedroom actually has 2 doors. So there's one door that is connected near from one side that connects to the toilet or the bathroom, and then we have this other door that connects to the living room. So my husband sometimes like walks around in a circle because there's two doors, and he'll just like walk around in circles whenever he's like doing business call or whatever. He just likes to do that, and this apartment is perfect because there's two doors for that. And so that's something that is really unique about this apartment, and the fact that it's all covered in white. It's just fully painted in white. It's mostly white, the ceiling is white, and the ceiling's super high. Our windows are white, and so I'm really loving the minimal details of this apartment, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I ended up choosing this apartment. Bear in mind, I'm not really doing like apartment comparison, but before I settled onto this apartment, I did go to see about like 15 different apartments within a span of 2 days. Because we wanted to compare a lot of apartments. I went on this French website, which is leboncoin.fr, and it's kind of like, what can I say? I guess it's a combination of StreetEasy and eBay, and so it has all sorts of things that you can find on secondhand, and also real estate, and also apartments, and also like even houses that you can sell or buy, and then cars. It's a really big marketplace where you can buy and sell lots of different types of things. And because it's so active and it's such a website, it's a website that's so like visited often, that even if like real estate agents who might have their own website or whatever, they'll still put it on. That's why I said it's kind of like StreetEasy, because on StreetEasy for New York, you can definitely find all sorts of listings that exist in New York, even if those listings might be found in other websites. And so I just went on leboncoin.fr, and then I chose all of the apartments that I wanted, and then basically I did all of the tours, and this apartment I think was like 4th or 5th, and then I still had apartments that I had scheduled to visit, so I did visit all of them, but I did choose this one in the end. Now, I did look for certain things when I was searching for the apartment on that website, and one of the biggest things was that it had to be furnished. Why? I mean, I have been like coming to France on a really short notice, and when I was like living in other countries, I really didn't plan out like how long I'm going to live in that country. So sometimes like in Jakarta, for example, we lived there for 3 years, and it was a house, we lived in a house that was also fully furnished, but even if we decided probably to move out from the country before the first year, or we stayed there 3 years, we didn't really have to like worry about furniture. And also in New York, we could definitely find like non-furnished apartments and just fill it up by ourselves, but lucky enough we were able to find options that were furnished because we were mostly going for sublets, and so we never actually bought furniture. And I think when you are trying to live in different cities over a span of time, it's helpful because you don't have to invest a lot of money in it, and you don't have to have the hassle of like a couple of days with no furniture, or maybe like a couple of days trying to sell those furniture. And I think it's definitely a big problem of money. So you get to save in a way that you don't have to buy all of this big chunk of material when you know that you won't be able to carry them around. I know that there are a lot of people, including myself, that I would love to decorate my apartment in the way that I want. And having found a furnished apartment isn't the best way to decorate it yourself and decorate it your way. But I guess that's why you end up looking for so many furnished apartments in the end, because you could definitely find some apartments that are furnished with the aesthetics, with the type of furniture, with the kind of color that you want. And I would say for this apartment, I mean, in terms of the basic tone of the house, apartment, which is the white walls, the white ceilings, super high ceilings, and the overall whiteness of this space is definitely something that I definitely fell in love with. And so even if like some of the furniture were exactly the type of furniture that I was looking for, it was still enough for me to call this apartment my favorite because it had all these elements that I really liked. And so I would say that was one of the things that I definitely looked into. The other thing was that I guess because I'm expecting a baby, there are things that I wanted to take into consideration. Now, this is my first baby and I've never like had a child in my life before, so I don't really know exactly what I should be looking for when I am searching for an apartment and I have to consider like taking care of a baby inside. But I definitely thought that I would end up spending a lot of time inside the house, even more so than when I'm like working by myself at home, because I guess for the first or second month that the baby is born, I probably won't be able to like just frequently go outside when I want to do something, which means I will spend a lot of time at home. And when you're spending a lot of time at home, and if you're cramped in a really small space, or even if it's like not the biggest apartment, if it's like structured in a way that you feel it's kind of narrow and small and you don't really have space to move around, I feel like it's something that really limits your activities and it just doesn't feel really airy and comfortable. And so I just wanted to have that kind of feeling when I walk into the apartment and I stay inside, and I feel like I can stay here all day, but I wouldn't feel like I'm so stuffy inside. And so the high ceiling of this apartment definitely helped me to feel that, and also the two large rooms, which is the living room and the bedroom, helped me to feel that a lot. And then I guess other thing was elevator, because I would definitely be wanting to move around with the baby at some point, and either I will be using a stroller or I might be carrying on a carrier. But at the same time, if I'm like living on the 5th floor with no elevator, oh my god, even right now, if I have to go up the stairs until the 5th floor with no elevator, I'm probably going to die before I give birth. No, that's too much, but you know what I mean. It's just a lot of work. And so although it's very difficult to find a modern apartment building with elevator in this city, we tried our best. And out of that almost 15 apartments that we visited, almost all of them didn't have elevators, and it was all like walk-ups in like stairs that looked like a spiral, that looked like, I don't know, like a giant snake, and it wasn't even like a convenient staircase. So this apartment definitely had an elevator, and then we had another apartment that had elevator, and that apartment actually had an elevator of, if I said it's an elevator, it's a type of elevator that you can imagine. But in this apartment, actually, the elevator is tiny. Like, it's so tiny that if I have this bump, probably myself and my husband can fit in like super tight, and then there's nobody else who can fit in. And so I think the baby can definitely fit in because we'll probably cuddle him, but if we have to put him on a stroller and put the stroller inside the elevator, that's gonna be really tricky. But that's still better than nothing because we're actually on the 4th floor of the building, and it's definitely helpful because we don't have to walk up the stairs that looks like a spiral, which is very beautiful, but it's very inconvenient. So that was one other thing. And the last thing I would say is definitely having a washer and dryer and possibly a dishwasher inside the building or inside the unit. And this part is, I think, more conscious in myself just because in New York it's been so difficult to find apartments with washer and dryer in units, let alone dishwasher, I guess. But washer and dryer in unit is sometimes like the hardest thing you can find. I mean, sometimes you go to really like high-priced rent apartments, but just because it's probably renovated in an old building, they don't have washer and dryer. you pay like $3,500 per month, you don't have washer and dryer. So you need to carry everything to the laundromat and you need to do your laundry outside, wait there, and come back home. I really couldn't afford to do that here, especially with the baby situation. So I definitely made sure that washer and dryer was in unit. And I have an impression that in France, it's not as challenging to find as in New York. I think probably the building structure allowed them to put the washer and dryer in unit, or either they had a better way of renovating old buildings with the piping system. I don't know how that works, but maybe it was easier for them to put the washer and dryer in unit. But fortunately, I think almost all of them had washer and dryer in unit, because most of the units that we visited were either renovated or in a new building. And so I guess that's one thing that wasn't super hard to find in this city, Marseille, or in France. I'm not sure. I've never tried to find an apartment in Paris. And I'm melting here. Okay, so lastly, today I want to talk about the rent. In my video where I talked about the New York apartment, I definitely mentioned the part about rent, and I also covered this subject in my video about top 5 costs of living in New York. And that was because my first top 1 cost of living in New York was definitely the rent. It was always the highest living cost from the monthly cost, and I had to make sure our income as a couple was affordable to the apartment that we had chosen in terms of the rent. And in the last apartment that we lived in, we paid $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment in Greenpoint, which was relatively a rare find. It was a really good find in a way, because I would say either studio in Manhattan could cost $2,000, and then maybe 1 bedroom in Brooklyn could cost $2,000, but we ended up finding a 2-bedroom apartment in $2,000 in Greenpoint, which is relatively close to Williamsburg, and the neighborhood was super nice and cozy. So $2,000 for a 2-bedroom was a really good deal. But the $2,000 itself, indefinite, the amount is pretty big compared to the amounts that we were faced here. So let me give you some comparison. So for example, studios were ranging from 400 euros to 650 euros with furnished and relatively good condition in a relatively good neighborhood. And obviously, sometimes studios in New York are sometimes even more expensive than 1 bedroom, depending on where it is, because studios are such a high demand type of apartment, and usually they are in new buildings, not usually in old buildings, so they tend to cost a lot, and it could sometimes be expensive than 1 or 2 bedroom in a relatively less nicer neighborhood, right? But here, studio for 400 to 650 euros is wow, that's a bargain. And so with our baby situation, we definitely could not live in a studio. And so we looked for type 2 apartments, which is, like I mentioned before, 1 bedroom, and it's a 1 bedroom. And 1 bedroom apartment, we could budget from the highest point of that studio, which is 650, all the way up to probably 1,500 if we were to spend a lot of money. But then again, we do have to consider our income here, and spending $2,000 or $2,000 in euros would be probably 1,900 euros per month on rent is a ridiculously big amount of money in this city to begin with, in Marseille, France, but even in Paris. And so our budget definitely went down, and our search went from 650 to 800 when we were searching. And in the end, we found lots of different apartment options that we could go to, but obviously this apartment that we chose is a little bigger, it's a little nicer, and so the rents that we have ended up settling on is 920 euros per month, which is including all of the furniture and water. So it is definitely over our own budget that we begin with. But if I compare that with New York, and if I see all of this beauty of this apartment, it's a bargain. And I love it. Now, since I'm getting super hot, I'm just gonna finish this video with a couple of points that are nice, but not nice. Of course, we are still in the honeymoon phase of this apartment and I'm still loving it. But there's definitely two things, I guess, that I could definitely mention about this apartment that I think probably have not come across when I was choosing the apartment. So the first thing was this gorgeous apartment was frequently used as the Airbnb of the owner. And as you can imagine, we're in a city where there's a lot of tourism going on, and even if it's not for tourists, it could be for people who are visiting the city from other cities in France. And so I think this kind of feature, this kind of level of apartment is perfect for people who are searching Airbnb. And I'm not really sure how much the owner would have put it on the market of Airbnb per night, but even after we signed the lease, there were some Airbnb guests that were still scheduled to come in here. So I know for a fact that this apartment might have been used pretty frequently as Airbnb. And of course, with the furniture inside, so the Airbnb guests would have used the furniture, which we are now having to use as our furniture for our long-term lease. And so I just made sure that I have probably cleaned all of the furniture that I don't know who would have used for what reason and what they would have done on this couch, on this bed when they're on holiday, right? We are grown-ups here. And so I really took care of washing them, and I thoroughly washed my bed sheets, and we did end up going to IKEA to buy some more small stuff that we wanted to fill the apartment with, because there are little things that were missing, and we had found out like a lot of things in this apartment actually came from IKEA, which is fine. I mean, it definitely goes with the vibe of the apartment, and it's reasonably priced and it's clean. It's totally fine. But there are some things that I always never understood about the French culture, is that they use this pillow that is completely square. And as a person who have always slept on a pillow that is rectangular, I just couldn't sleep on this square pillow. Like, it was impossible. And this apartment came with 5 square pillows, and I could not deal with that. I couldn't sleep. I have baby bump, and I am already struggling to have deep sleeps during the nighttime, and this pillow was just not helping. So we ended up going to IKEA. We chose our favorite pillows. We tried everything, and then even if it was a little bit overpriced for the type of things that we have to put money into these apartments, sleeping is so important, and we bought 2 different types of pillows that we thought was the most convenient, with some white pillowcases and some bed sheets. And I completely washed them and even ironed them and put them back into our bed so that our bed is nice and clean and almost like new. And so we can sleep well, and I have been sleeping pretty well. And then this morning, before I was filming this video, I wanted to make sure that our couch was clean. So this morning, I took the liberty of taking off the cushion cover and washed it. And for some reason, the cushion cover had so many white powder in it, and I don't know where it comes from, what that powder is, but I think it's from the fabric. So it's not like the most extravagant fabric of cushion covers, but I did wash that. I guess I could have asked the owner to really clean the place super clean, but I mean, I thought it was really clean before I lived here, and I did do a lot of cleanup, and so that was one thing I can complain about. And second thing is, like, I'm melting. I'm super hot right now. There's no AC. Oh well, you know, in New York you always have that thick AC hole on your wall of the whole building to be able to put an AC inside your room, because people don't live with ACs. but here apparently they do. And so all I have to do is make sure I close all of this double window outside so there's no sunlight coming in, but I can open the window from the inside so that there's air flowing in, and that will allow this apartment to cool down. Otherwise, I will use my best friend here, the fan. And so right now, as I am trying to film this in a lot of light with no sound coming from the outside, I have closed all of the windows from the inside and opened the windows from the outside, and I'm melting. So I'm going to go and sit in front of my fan for a little while. But that's the end of my French apartment tour. I hope to do more amazing videos in this apartment, and obviously filming this super high ceiling in one shot was really difficult for me, but I hope that you guys like this video. And if you ever consider going to find an Airbnb or I don't know, an apartment in France, this kind of apartment I would say is still super lovely in aesthetics and to your mental health. I think it's a bright, lovely apartment, minus some of the things that I mentioned. So let's enjoy the view and get some fresh air. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much!